Hello, everybody. I would like to welcome you to the third edition of the IM Studio Music Talk series, presented by the Austrian Cultural Forum Warsaw in cooperation partnership with the Unsound Festival. Our today's guests are Zosia Hołubowska, aka Mala Herba from Sound Square Vienna, and our host is Łukasz Warma-Wiesławski from the Tańce label, ex-co-curator of the Unsound Festival and music journalist. And I am Artur Koryciński. So, hello guys, good to see you.
Hi. So thanks for the introduction, Artur. And as Artur said, we're here with Zosia Hołubowska, aka Mala Herba. My name is Łukasz Warma-Wiesławski. And before we dive into the musical production, let's get to know Zosia a bit better first. And this is something I wanted to start with because we had this conversation before about the name Mala Herba. This is something for the Polish audience. This is not a Polish name. It's not a small herb or a small tea.
No, it's not a small herb. Actually, when I came up with the name comes from Latin and it means bad or evil herb because I really like the idea of a weed or Chwast or Unkraut in German. So that's where the name comes from. And then I noticed that it's being constantly misspelled to Mała Herba, making me a perfect runner for the worst SoundCloud mumble rap name of the year.
Artur is having a Mała Herba right now.
Yes, I'm having a very small Earl Grey tea right now.
Yeah.
So this connects to some of the interests that are visible in your music, right? Because you're inspired by magic and witchcraft and the folklore, the traditions of Eastern Europe.
Yes, I am. I don't know how to expand on that, really. No, I'm like completely fascinated with, you might say, traditional music of Eastern Europe. That's a bit of a tricky question because on one hand we have this, let's call it root music or ethno-archival recordings and archives. On the second hand, we have like a huge body of theoretical work. So everything that has to do with transcribing this sort of music, organizing it, archiving, and this stuff that I'm very critical towards. And the third aspect is, of course, the folklore or reinventing tradition, right? So this whole project of coming up with what Polish culture might be after the war, and then we have like big folklore bands like Mazowsze and this sort of stuff. So when we talk about traditional music or like folk music, I am definitely leaning towards, let's say, root music, right? So like the field recordings or ethnomusicological recordings.
And we'll take a look into one of, or maybe more of those archives tonight,
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I will show where I take my inspirations from.
And that's one of the aspects of things that you do. You also run Sounds Queer in Vienna. Like, what is this? Like, what is this like organization? A workshop? Mm-hmm. Can you say a bit more?
So Sounds Queer started very small. I think in 2015. It started in Denmark and Australia, actually, the two places where I tried to live. And at the beginning, there were just very, very simple workshops about singer-songwriting and how to start making music without knowing how to play an instrument. And then, together with my interest, it evolved more into the direction of electronic music. And then I moved to Vienna and I received a scholarship to develop the project further. And since 2 years, we are a registered association here in Vienna. We are a collective currently of 4 artists. And up until Corona pandemic, we were running an open studio that was equipped with synthesizers, controllers, monitors, everything basically you need to come and start experimenting with electronic music. Now the studio is unfortunately closed down, but we hope to resume workshops ASAP. And we have also collaborated in creating exhibitions and performances, and I also run a podcast in Radio Kapitał with the same name. Sounds queer. It should also be at some point the title of my PhD dissertation, but I don't know if I'm going to see it in this lifetime.
So after the pandemic is over, hopefully, sooner than later, and if there's someone joining us tonight from Vienna, if they would show up at your door, like what could they expect, or what could they do with you or the other participants of Sounds Queer?
Well, we're going to start online workshops tomorrow, actually. It's going to be the first one. And then during like this uncertain times, we will be a guest in Res Radio, which is a small community internet radio. We're going to try to make workshops there. And hopefully when the situation is a little bit more stable, we will find a new spot that will have regular opening hours. And every time you come, there will be someone there to help and support you, show you how to connect things, and then you can just synth away with whatever is available. And also if you want to make your demo, then yes, we are here for you.
Great. So anyone, if you're in Vienna, that's an invitation. And Zosia will be playing, because this meeting is also a part of Ansan Festival, and Zosia will be playing at Ansan on 5th October, right?
Yes, that's
with a special project, a premiere with Julia Geertz.
Mhm.
What's that project?
Oh, I still cannot believe that it's happening. It's like a really big thing for me to be selected through this open call. So the idea is called Community of Grieving, and the idea is to create an audio ritual, to create a communal space to deal with the grief and the loss of everything that we've lost or were deprived of because of the pandemic. And there will be a sort of like a choreographic score for people to perform on their own, an audio piece, half-an-hour audio piece to listen to on headphones that is going to be streamed thanks to Radio Kapitał. And a chat on Discord, because now we're on Jitsi, so I'm not going to say anything about video conferences, but I think that you feel me when I say that like Zoom absolutely terrifies me. And I miss chats, I miss like old school chats, you know? I think this medium is not dead, and this way of communicating still has a lot to offer, so there's going to be a chat to talk about grief and talk about what we've lost and what we miss.
And we can all do it in real time during the show.
Yes, I mean right after the show. During the show, you're supposed to, focus and listen. And then after
Dance. So if anyone wants to chat right now, we have a chat option on the left. On the left bottom, you have a button to open the chat. And if you have any questions to Zosia during the show, you can write them there. And after the first part of the workshop, we can dive in deeper and explore more of the techniques that Zosia will show us.
Yeah, this is really such a peculiar setting because I'm really nervous and I'm trying to be funny and like throw all these dry jokes, and then all I can see is like black rectangles.
So now maybe let's listen to some music. Let's see what you're doing, what you're working with, what's your sound.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you a video that's safe for work. And here we go. So this is like a single from my upcoming record. I still don't know when it's gonna be released because it's difficult to say, but it's gonna be released on this Berlin label called Aufnahme und Wiedergabe, and it's this like very industrial techno part of my sound. I hope you will appreciate it.
So we've been listening to Mala Herba's Dawaj, coming out soon on Aufnahme Wiedergabe. And we have the chat going on. Bronish says that the vocals remind them of Dead Can Dance. So Dark Wave, one of the references for you, Zosia?
Dark Wave? Yeah, totally. Yeah. But I'm really bad with names of genres. Like, I only recently understood what industrial and EBM is. You know, I had like my own funny labels for that. I was like, I like this, like sexy BDSM music.
Well, it's definitely the more personal, the better. So, and sexy BDSM music sounds much more appealing uh, whatever it's called these days. So maybe let's see how it's done. Like, how do you put those vocals on? How do you design the sound? Let's jump into Ableton.
Sorry, before Ableton, I wanted to show you something because we talked about the archives, and I just wanted to share where I get the inspirations from.
Is that okay? Would that be interesting?
Sure, let's start with that, and that will lead us.
Okay. So maybe I'll just mention that I am not musically trained, but I did this like unofficial training for many years in archival singing. And one of the things that I did was study at the University of Warsaw. They have this 1-year course in ethnomusicology that since been disbanded, but this is how I came in possession of a lot of these materials that sometimes are a little bit difficult to get because you have to actually go into the archive. So I'm going to share my screen now to show you different web pages that you can use. Ciach. All right, so this is the webpage of the Polish Academy of Science, and right now it's closed and their online catalog doesn't work, but this is one of the biggest and oldest collection of this sort of recordings. They even have this wax cylinders with old recordings. The second resource is Europeana, which is can lead you directly to this huge database of archives. I think this is the webpage. Yeah, so this is like a webpage that allows you to browse music archives. And one of my favorite things is this one. This is an online museum of folk instruments where you can like see how they looked like, and there's this very complicated classification. This is apparently an adiophone something. I'm gonna share now a sound. Does that mean? Okay, so this is kołatka. Yeah, cool, right? So yeah, I would like download samples like this and then process them further. One of the other web pages that I really love is this one with music from the region called Polesie, where you can also download all the little snippets of songs, and these ones are actually under Creative Commons license, so you can use it commercially. And the last resource that I use is this record label called In Crudo, which is a Warsaw label that releases a lot of this in crudo, meaning like in situ, so like field recordings in situations. And the label is run by a colleague of mine, so whenever I want a clear sample, I can just drop them an email and ask if I can use this particular sample, and usually it's been okay. And when it comes to cleared samples already, I will be putting all these links in the chat later. But this is a really great library of sounds from BBC. It's called Acropolis. It's not traditional music, but it's a lot of like everyday sounds from different locations, from different decades, and they usually described really meticulously. So we have an 8mm projector running on 24 frames per second. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. And the last thing, I promise, the last resource that I'm sharing is I'm like a really big fan of Polish Experimental Studio, and in Adam Mickiewicz Institute, together with Ableton, prepared this huge collection of samples from artists that worked in this studio that is for free, and they're all declared, so you can learn more about this very unique institution and download the samples and go crazy with them. So this is where I get my sounds.
These all look really, really interesting, and I haven't known many of them, and I'm definitely gonna dig in later. I knew this encyclopedia of instruments, and I've always found it really fascinating because you can actually put the image to the sound.
Yeah.
And the photos they have are so good, like they're so like crispy. All those colors, like the instruments are kind of like worn in. They really tell a story. They're really good.
Yeah, I love this museum of sounds. Okay, so I probably shouldn't have touched the recorder. Okay. Anyway, now let's dive into the Ableton. I wrote myself like 4 approaches to working with archives. So one approach is to undo or deconstruct the archive, and it has to do with the fact that, you know, like historically archives are connected to this very violent process of taking something out of the context and labeling with the name of the researcher, not with the person that's actually possessing the knowledge. So that's something that I wanted to bring up because it also happened to Polish and Ukrainian culture, that, you know, it got really uprooted and, you know, dissected into parts, labeled alphabetically, and then stored into an archive under the name of the researcher. And what I'm specifically interested in is like looking for this queerable moments. So like these little moments that are, you know, outside of the male gaze. So it might be a song about, I don't know, girls hanging out together, or about witches, or about demons. And then try to, you know, critically confabulate, since I'm an academic, to like, you know, reimagine the past, like reinterpret the past and engage these elements into what is really close to me, electronic music, and make it like alive again. So it doesn't become like this, you know, archival, I don't know, artifact, but it becomes alive, and it still has this, you know, magical power. So that's Professor Zosia for you, and then we jump into the Ableton. All right, so I prepared this set with some samples for you today to show you how I work with found material. And today I downloaded this song, which is actually a reconstruction. It's not like archival recording. It's a band that is trying to play music, like learn from old masters and recreate traditional music. So I'm just going to play the fragment that's like unwarped, right? So it's... Yeah. And what is really interesting about this song, it's called Shemieniec. It's actually a song that was performed as a part of like a magical kind of like fertility ritual, and the idea was to close men off in a guest house, you know, like in a drinking place, and have them dance until they really collapse, and if someone wanted to run away they would be beaten up. So you really have to sweat. And the idea is to like have this kind of rhythm that, like, you know, eludes you, like you keep on losing the rhythm and you keep on finding the rhythm, and that's something that I really like in this song. Okay, enough of knowledge about traditional Polish culture. So for example, one of the stuff that I really like to experiment with is very simple, because I'm not an Ableton pro, but I'm just gonna go into the arrangement view, and so you can see better what I'm gonna do with it. So this is just like a fragment, right? It's unwarped, which means that like it's in its original BPM and it's in its original pitch, and it doesn't have like any of these markers that would allow me to stretch it or warp it. And I just simply convert melody to a new MIDI track. It's like one of my secret tricks. And I'm not going to do it now because I've already done it, so I don't want to waste your time. It's in the second track here. So this is like this, how this fragment looks like. And I put on it a really nice plugin. And I'm going to show you now what is this plugin. So there's this person called Elephant on Instagram and Facebook, and they made really nice grain synthesizers, and that's basically all I use in my life. And then you're gonna see why. So this is like this fragment converted to MIDI, the synthesizer is on, and the filter here is mapped to LFO, like a really slow LFO. So like there's just like a little bit of movement here. And
So yeah, I chose only like a fragment of this track. And then deactivate a lot of notes in this other part. Which I think I left like maybe like 4 to have more air in it. Yeah, cool trick, no? I mean, like, I don't have to compose anything. It just basically did everything for me. You know, just put some reverb on it, and then that's your first intro track.
You could actually release it on some like vaporwave label with no problem. It's very eerie and digital. It's very cool.
so for those of you who are a little bit newer to electronic music, when you make a beat, it has of course BPM that you can check here, so that's beat per minute, but a groove is kind of like this general swing of the beat. It has to do with like micro spaces between hits of different instruments, and also velocity, so like intensity of each drum. And when you are going for this like very electronic sounding music like techno, then you know you don't really need to bother yourself with that. But if you want something to be like more groovy, or I don't know, a little bit weirder, then it's nice to dive into the groove pool in Ableton here. And there's already like a lot of these predefined grooves that allow you to introduce a little bit like rock or hip hop or whatever, like jazzy swing feeling to your beat. But you can also upload any kind of music and with right click extract a groove. And I already did that. This is like the groove from this whole clip. And I wrote, sounds really odd. I wrote it. But I made a beat. This is like a very classic techno beat. So on its own, it sounds like this. Yeah, right? And now I'm gonna apply this groove. So what I need to do is like take it here and drop it in this groove pool. And now
it's much more like wonky and like weird, right?
Yes, it's more sloppy. It's not so mechanical. It has this flow. Yes.
yeah, exactly. So we're going for this like feeling of old mister in the village with his leather little drum, or as they are called actually, devil's fiddle. That's what we're going for. Alright, so we have the beat, we transformed the sample into the MIDI, we extracted the groove. Now another very simple thing that I like to do is using the algorithm or using the Ableton's sample window and sample options to stretch the shit out of the sample. And if you double click on the sample, it doesn't matter in which view, if it's in arrangement or in the clip mode, and you warp it, then you can use this segment to stretch the sample but still keep the fundamental pitch or the fundamental frequency intact. And there are different algorithms here to preserve beats or tones and texture. But if you do it like really, really drastically, so like now if I'm gonna go to like 700 or I don't know, something like this, and like enhance all of this, which is, you know, the opposite of you're supposed to do if you're looking for a natural effect. We're not going for natural. Then I think you can get like really nice textures. So this is how it sounds like now. Alright, and then yeah, again, just put a bunch of reverb on it, sides chain it, and you have a really trippy, creepy pad. Is this okay now, or is it like too fast, or is this okay?
If anyone has any comments, just let us know in a chat and we'll adjust.
Okay, no questions. Okay, so all right. So CDP is this free software that was developed in 80s in someone said academic context and at first it ran on Atari, and you can still download it and use it, and it has some sort of like a very archaic GUI that is gonna crash immediately. So unfortunately, there hasn't been like any update to it, but I still think that it's an amazing software because it allows you to work with the waveform, like a single cycles of the sound. So it is working with this idea of sound transformation. So you can, for example, chop the sound into single cycles, stack them, rearrange them, and get this like really, really amazing effects. And what was done is that these processes of CDP were then coded into Super Collider commands. And now you should be able to see my Super Collider window. Yes?
Yep, we got it.
Okay. So Super Collider is...
Are you hacking Despacito?
Yes. Yes. Yes, I am. Someone has a really good eye. Okay, so for those of you who see it for the first time, a Super Collider is a coding environment to work specifically with music. You can design any kind of synthesizers that you wish, but you can also make very intricate patterns and then arrange them into routines. So it's very, very versatile, but unfortunately it looks like this. And it's like quite an advanced language, and it has a very strict syntax, and the compiler, so this is the compiler which tells me if the command was executed or not, is very vague. So it's not going to show you if you're missing a colon or if you're missing like, a letter. It's just going to tell you computer says no. But my professor rewrote all of the CDP processes into Super Collider. And for those of you who have a Macintosh computer, I can totally share this file with you and show you how to execute it. But for those of you who have Windows, I'm sorry, but I have no idea how I made it work because there's a problem with some paths. So my professor configured this program to work on Windows. So I'm just going to show you how opaquely it works. So I already have this Shemieniec song added to my path. It's already like as a function. And if I want to execute a certain process, for example, I don't know. Okay, instead of Despacito, we're going to do this. Tak. Right. So what is going to happen now? I'm like executing this command. Of course, the computer says no. So then I have to copy it, open a command line, which is like a portal to execute different commands for Windows directly, and then it should execute it. I hope it's there. So let's look for this. So these are the outputs that the program spit out, and I don't even know which process are executed. Let's read it. In between, generate a set of sounds in between the two input sounds by interpolation pegged to zero crossing. So one sound is my Sheminets, and the other one is just like grains, which is probably like a dust noise or something. So I'm gonna like, whoops, chuck it into Ableton real quick so we can listen to it. Opalala. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. And I know for a fact that when I switch between Super Collider and Ableton, I need to restart the audio driver in Ableton. So let me just do that. All right. Okay. So for those of you who forgot how this amazing folk tune sounds, this is the original. All right, and this is what the CDP have done with it. So the first tryout. All right. And the fourth piece. Okay, pretty cool, no? So like my second record is done. And again, Steve, you can hit me up, or I don't know, like Instagram or whatever, and I can send you the code for Super Collider if you have a Mac and you wanna play with CDP. You don't even have to know how to use Super Collider. You just boot the server, Control B, and like boot the run all the commands that are there with just adding the files, and it should work fine, and you can have this little thingies, or you can try to work with the GUI, the native GUI of this software, but it really is vintage.
Yeah, I just tried this software, and it only takes wave mono files, like not.
True, I forgot to mention it. Yes, it only takes mono waves. So before, I'm so sorry. So before you add any file in Ableton, you have to export it, and here in the setting you can convert it to mono. Sorry.
Okay, so to use this GUI like natively, do you only have to have samples? I thought like some sound fonts are needed, like SF files, or like I don't know.
I don't exactly remember how to install it because it's been quite some time since I did that. But there are instructions how to download this software, and there's like a GUI and something else, and it should work all right. But you cannot do like more than 1 or 2 processes at the same time because it's gonna crash. But there's like a really good documentation for this, how to install it.
Okay, thank you. I have to go for a moment and be back later.
Yeah, okay.
And if you're a Windows user and you want to use it with Super Collider, is there any chance that you might fix it on your own, or does it require some super secret knowledge?
I don't know that. I mean, the thing is that I wasn't able to make it work on my own. That's what I remember. that you have to go into the settings, how like this, where these processes are stored and what are the paths for these processes, and it was just too advanced for me. So if you're a Windows user and you want to use it, then I guess you're only left with this archaic GUI. But if you have a Windows and you really want to use it, I can ask my professor if it's possible to write down instructions how to do it. So, is it you or is it someone else that has a Windows and wants to use it?
I'm just asking in general if anyone, because I imagine some people will have Windows, and yeah, maybe one day I would actually try.
Yes, so if you want me to hook you up with Bjarni Gunnarsson, who is a Super Collider genius based in Hague and also an amazing composer, let me know and I will try to use my awkward smile there. Anyway, okay, so that was CDP. Now I'll go back to Ableton. Ciach. Alright. So I think in the description I specifically wanted there to be cheap plugins mentioned, because as a freelance artist I'm always broke and I like to use cheap plugins. So I have this monthly subscription with Pure Magnetic. So he's a developer also working with Super Collider and C Sound, which is another coding environment for composers, but he basically releases a new plugin every month. And if you have a subscription that I think is like €9 a month, then you get a new plugin freshly delivered to your mailbox. And they're usually like for experimental stuff, so there's like different, cloud stretchers and drone makers and different experimental reverbs. But I really like them and I like the drawings, so I use them basically in every project. And I'm gonna now present some of the ones that I really like. So I have this one that's called Fog, and it's a little bit like pulse stretch with a lot of reverb and some like filter that's boosting up resonances, but nonetheless I love it very much. And I already resampled a part of this original Sheminiets with this plugin in, so we don't have to waste time. So this is how it sounds like.
So I think it's pretty cool. Another one that I really like to use is this one called Meek Meek. Early in the morning I was learning how to shape a kick on my own with the YouTube tutorial. An amazing tutorial that's 5 minutes and no one is sharing their life story at the beginning or like links to buy someone's music. It's just
5 minutes how to shape a kick. Okay, so again, this is the beat now, like back to this, like no groove, so just like 4 to the floor. Oh, sorry, the Meek Meek is already on, sorry. Yeah, so now this is how it looks like. So basically it's like a very wobbly, jumpy delay where the length of the buffer and the when it's skipped or how long it's actually going to repeat itself varies at different rates. So you can create this very random and unpredictable rhythms depending on where you're going to put it. And maybe I'm just only going to show one more because I have a lot of a lot of them, but I want to show the ones that I use the most. Hang on. Okay, so I made this drum rack, an empty drum rack, and just chucked really little pieces of this original track, so like really little ones. You can see there's just like super tiny fragment. So without it, it's just this. And then with this situation over here, it gets this like wobbly tail, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and put everything together, and all together this drum, it's not really a drum beat, it's just like this thing that I made, sounds like this. Yeah, so they're like little fragments, some are pitched, then they always have like some kind of nice fade out edit, so they don't end up so abruptly. And then a lot of this plugins from Pure Magnetic to try not to have just like a simple delay or reverb, but something that's like randomized and create this like choppy structures. And then another, or more like two less things that I wanted to show. I really like Willem Basiński and this way of composing where you have loops, but they're like of different length, so they're coming like in and out of sync with each other. So when I work in the clip mode, then I try to make sure that, I mean, depends what kind of effect I want. Like sometimes I, for example, would have this beat in like in 4, but something else will have 6 bars, and something else will have like 4. So you know, it's like it's coming out of sync and in a sync, but like it's still somehow. How do you call it? How would you call it? Comprehensible. But if I do something like this, you know, like shorten it just a little bit, then the way these samples are going to come in and out of sync is going to be much more unpredictable and even more wonky. Depends on what kind of effect I want to go for, because I can easily just have this 4 to the floor and just this MIDI. And the fog. Yeah, so that's like, you know, a little bit interesting, but it's still very orthodox, right? Or like it's still manageable for a human ear. But I can then upgrade it. There's something more to my liking these days. I know it's like very different to what I showed you, but I'm very drawn to this kind of like very, I don't know, creepy and deconstructed sounds and structures. And it's also like, I don't know, a way of me to deal with the fact that I'm from Poland.
I'm not surprised because you can easily dive into this rabbit hole, like deconstructing almost everything, and the results are really weird, like ghostly, I would say. It's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'll have a question later.
It's just because I cannot see anyone. So
Yeah, it's a bit funny, like all this
so if
boxes with letters.
Yeah, so if you would find it in your heart to write me in the chat if it was like interesting, even on the scale. Well, okay, it says 2 points. Okay, great. 2 points out of 10. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, because it's you know.
No, it meant super cool and not 2 points out of 10, sorry. Don't be so hard on yourself.
Thank you. That's very sweet.
So we've got Enigos wanting to ask her. Enigos, though they're saying they don't have a question, they're just saying thanks in the chat.
You're very, very kind. Okay, but do you have it? Yeah, if you, Łukasz, or if anyone has a question now.
Yeah, we'll just start with this plugin subscription thing that you're using. Like, because he's saying there's like a plugin monthly, right? So is it all plugins that are kind of like, I don't know how to call it because I'm not a producer, kind of like randomizing things in music, or is this producer's a thing, is his thing or their thing that they're doing plugins like that?
No, not only. But he is interested in more like this, you know, let's say computer music, you know, this kind of like music that is being created at institutes for computer music. So randomizing is very important. But he also makes a lot of stuff with like experimental reverbs, experimental delays, stretching things. And recently there's this plugin for like phantomizing a 3D image, even if you're just using headphones. I mean, it is possible with other plugins as well.
What does that mean? That means that it would take like a regular sample and kind of try to make like a spatial sound out of it, like automatically?
Yeah, it's supposed to give you this impression of a sound like not only moving like left to right, but also like moving in different directions. And normally you can do it for free with this set of samples that are called Envelope, that are also for free. And you can also, they also decode sound for systems that include more than 2 speakers. So like systems that have 4, 5, 6, 8 speakers, you name it. But this plugin from Pure Magnetic allows you to achieve this kind of like movement of sound in a space with just headphones, so like stereo image. It's called, it has this nice monster on the picture, and it's called Parsec, 3D Perception Creature. Okay, I'm uploading this link to the chat. All right. A question. When you are combining these plugins, do you have a sound in mind you want to reach, or is it more exploring where the process takes you? Both. I mean, sometimes I kind of like, I have like a general idea, oh, I want like a lush pad, or I want a draw, but I like to experiment a lot and just like chuck a lot of stuff on top of each other, like using multiple delays or multiple reverbs in one chain. I know it's forbidden, but I love you doing this. like I got such a almost like, you know, verbal beating from a colleague once, like, what are you doing? Are you out of your mind? You cannot do this. I'm like, it's forbidden. But yeah, if I feel nice in my head and feel creative, then I like to twist the knobs and see where it takes me. Or for example, you know, like LFO or animating, what you call them, like knobs or the parameters that are supposed to stay stable, like for example, you know, the size of the room or the time of the delayed sample. If you ever try to like animate or LFO that, you get this like really ghostly stuff. It's also something that you're supposedly not do.
That's how you get best results, right? Like breaking the rules.
Or the worst, yes. You can get like really cool effects, and you can also just, I mean, it's totally fine to make shit. I mean, people usually envelope plugins. Yes, envelope. So this is like a whole set of really, really nice plugins for Max for Life. So like Ableton, but you need to have Max for Life, which comes in the Suite version, where you can really spatialize the sound, like, you know, in this ambisonic kind of approach. So really place a sound somewhere in the space, on a circle, have the sound move between sources, have a delay that, you know, like each ping from the delay is in different in a different spot on the circle. So they're for free and they're really, really cool, and it's super easy to set up to have the sound decoded. I use it when I work in the theater, when I make music for like dance pieces, and when I have a possibility to have 4 speakers, then man, this is like a completely new level. It's really cool because like it really we can have, you know, the sound like dance around you in a quite like cheap way, because the systems that allow you to spatialize sound, it's like a lot of work to develop it into something that's affordable, because usually you need like a really good computer and a server and a huge sound card and like a really complicated system. So it's not so easily achieved for like, you know, budget artists like myself. But with this envelope plugins and 4 speakers, then really you can really feel like you're in Monom, or I've never been to Monom, but like, you know, that's how I imagine it. One day I'll go.
Well, I've been there once at CTM Festival, and that was really impressive. But actually, the show that I remember most of it was the show that was using the system in a very, very subtle way, like not really going all crazy, exploring all the possibilities, but just like, you know, those gentle like notes and touch. That was Gaika, and which was also very unusual, because you would expect someone like, I don't know, like Oteker, Florian Hecker, this type of like nerds who would use every single speaker to some effect. But that was really, really cool.
Yeah, that's a dream. That's a dream, to go to a concert and maybe in the future, in my next life, to be able to compose for a system like this. But that's
gonna happen soon. We got 1 year more, hopefully, sitting at home, and then.
I mean, with the way things are going,
yeah, I'm just optimistic for the camera. Like,
I have another year of sitting at home, guaranteed.
We will invent something. Humans always invent some thing. Let's see what this time it will bring.
Home monom.
Home monom.
Do it yourself.
Please.
So guys, do we have anyone? I think we should.
I just came back.
Perfect.
And I have a question. What happened? Before, like, I see some links, like, for example, to plugins. But did you show like any interesting Ableton specific techniques, or I don't know. Like maybe I can ask you later after this call.
I mean, very interesting. I don't know. I just use like very basic techniques. You know, I convert a field recording to MIDI and see what happens. Yeah, I stretch it. I also exported the groove. Hang on, and then I was using the CDP program to deconstruct sound.
Yeah, later.
And then I was just talking about different plugins that I use, and then sometimes I chop micro like elements of this field recording, put in a drum rack, and just make something really weird out of it, and then experiment with loops having different lengths so they like come in and out of sync.
So then they all came together into this like weird ethereal piece that actually made sense.
It's gonna be my next record. Yes, there's 15 minutes of this.
It reminded me to heart arrhythmia.
Yeah,
I thought about the heart, and usually your heart has this nice pumping groove, like, you know, like a house or techno beat. But sometimes when you have heart arrhythmia, this sound appears, which reminded me
It makes sense with this
deconstruction.
with where the sound came from, like this whole folk myth around it, right? So you actually you get to experience this whole feeling of being stuck in this painful loop of magic that's supposed to kick your ass.
Oh, okay, painful.
The male fertility alcohol ritual, or?
Yes, Shemieniec, yes. I mean, just, you know, I'm like really fascinated with the craftsmanship of playing a folk instrument, because, you know, the rhythm that, you know, cannot be so easily measured with how we perceive rhythm. So like we can, you know, there's always this like micro variation between the hits on the drum. And then, you know, every local band would be like tuned with each other. But if you travel to another village, then, you know, the instruments will be out of tune because they have like, you know, a different A, let's so to speak. So like it's discovering this like micro tonal music. And what is like absolutely fascinating when it comes to Polish way of singing is Polish like singing music. It doesn't, you don't sing in voices, you sing in unisono. But the thing is that when different voices that have different timbre sing perfectly in unisono, then they start to resonate with each other, and then they have this like particular frequencies that like, you know, spike up. They like, you know, these resonators are appearing, and they're called alikwoty, technically speaking, and they're like almost like this like ghostly resonances, as if someone like else is adding like a harmony to it. It's like when you experience it, when you sing together with people like this, it's absolutely magical. And I think in my music, I'm not interested in like reconstructing, because I don't have knowledge to do it. I don't know how to play an instrument. I don't speak the dialect. I don't even read the notes. But I really want to evoke this magical feeling of what this music meant and what it did to the body with what I'm trying to do in Ableton. I don't know, to...
This is the perfect opportunity to plug tańce, Łukasz.
Yes.
Yes, this is something I'm working on, and Adam is also one of the people who are working on it, and we'll see where it will lead us with combination of dance music and folk inspirations.
Yes, it's fascinating. I'm going to Podlasie with a Polish and Austrian musician, and I'm doing a field recording session in November. So yes, it is. So it's interesting that we are all somehow going. Yeah, we all need to get more knowledge and to listen to more to the music which was not really around us, because folkloristic music from this part of Poland was never at my house. and now it seems there's this big urge to get this vibration, and as you said, translate the wood into the Appleton. I really like this quote from you.
It's kind of like a folk instrument of today, like the app.
Yes, it is. It is our folk instrument of today. Absolutely. Yes, it is.
Especially combined with some, torrents.
The second folkloristic, what is it? The torrent? Is it an
It's just
instrument?
it's the oral tradition, which is like sharing knowledge through the generations.
Exactly. Yes, that's the modern way of the oral tradition.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Zosia, and thank you so much, Łukasz, for this beautiful session. And what I can promise is that everyone who will send us an email, it's the same email address which we asked you guys in order to get the web link. You can just send us an email, and we will prepare a whole list of links to the archives and also to everything else, especially the plugins Zosia mentioned. And and we are inviting you for the 4th edition. Zosia, you as well. We are doing the 4th edition of M Studio on the 28th of October. Łukasz will be hosting, and we will have Zora Jones as our special artist guest. Zora Jones is a music producer, but also an amazing software filter engineer. So we'll be talking about music and also visual effects and filters. And it seems that she and Sinjin Hawk will have also an amazing performance during the Anson Festival, also presented by the Austrian Cultural Forum. I think it's on the concert will be on the 4th of October. And your performance is on the 5th of October. So
Yes, on the
one day earlier. So thank you so much for everything.
And thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us on this Jitsi workshop session.
Yes, and let's try to make a second part of it in the near future. I think we can talk more and more about, the wood and the Appleton.
And the ghosts.
And the knobs. It's not a 2, it's a double yes.
All right, then have a nice evening, everyone, and
see you soon.
See you soon. See you in a month.
Bye-bye.
See you soon, and yes, in a month at latest. So bye bye. Thank you so much, guys. Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye, everyone.
Ciao. Ciao.